We're now ready to take a look at how we can save our selections as alpha channels so that we can reuse them in the future. They're also useful in some of the other CS5 programs. We'll actually do a little demonstration showing you how to use the alpha channels in InDesign. Now to get started here, let's open up an image. We'll open up the 03 alpha channel. It's our old cell phone. And I'm going to create a selection using the magic wand tool. Again, I will select the background, which is not what I want, so I'll right-click, select the inverse. And of course, before I save any selections, I want to make sure that my selection is as good as possible, so I need to contract and feather it. Come up here to the Select menu, Modify, Contract 1 pixel, Select, Modify, Feather 0.5 pixels. Now you already know how to save that selection. If I bet you $1 million if you could save that selection, you should know exactly what to do. Now, if you're going to lose that $1 million bet, here's the answer. Remember, if you ask yourself, how do I save a selection? If that word selection is in the question or in the sentence that you say to yourself, look in the Select menu. Sure enough, you come up here, you're trying to save the selection. Geez, I wonder what menu option will save the selection. Probably the one that says Save Selection. Now I'm going to show you how to save the selection here using the menu, and in a second I'll show you the shortcut for saving selections. Click the button. Tells me what document I want to save this in. I want to save it in the document that I'm working on, 03 Alpha. It's a new channel. That's our only option. And I can give it a name. I'll call it Phone. If you don't give it a name, it's just going to be called Alpha 1. And down here, what we're trying to do, the operation, our only option right now is the new channel. I'll go ahead and click OK. Now to actually view that channel, you have to come over to the Channels panel, and you'll see down here we've created an alpha channel. Black represents what we don't want, white represents what we do want. If you were to pull this into Premiere Pro, put some video down on video track number 1, drop this cell phone picture on video track number 2, the black area would be transparent. The white area would be opaque. Now it's very easy to save that selection, but really we haven't saved anything until we actually save the file. Right now you come up here and we can see that we're working with a JPEG. You cannot save alpha channels in JPEGs. We're going to save this out either as a Photoshop document, a .psd, or you can also use a TIFF file. I recommend using the PSDs. That's the native Photoshop file. So I'm going to come up here, File. I'm just going to hit File, Save. You might say, well, boy, that's going to save right over our JPEG. Remember, you can't save a alpha channel in a JPEG. So it's going to force you to actually save it either as a TIFF or a PSD. I'm going to switch to PSD, and I'll save it right here in this same folder. So we're not actually saving over our JPEG. Notice here that if you want to keep the alpha channels, you need to make sure that the alpha channel option is checked on. Go ahead and hit Save. And then I'll close this up. Now let's say a month goes by and the boss comes around and says, you know that cell phone? I like to put it on our new shopping bags. Say the first time around you put it on a product package. Of course, in this case, it only took us a few seconds to make that selection. So if we didn't save the selection, probably wouldn't be too big of a deal. We could always regenerate that selection in a matter of seconds. But some of these selections are going to take a lot longer time. They might take you 20 minutes, a half hour, 5 minutes, whatever. You can save time by saving out that selection. All you got to do now is open up the PSD. Come over here. I'll just go to File, Open Recent. There it is, Alpha PSD. And there we have our alpha channel. So what we now need to do is load that selection so we can get it back and use it. Well, geez, I wonder where we go to load the selection. We'll come up here to the Select menu, and there is Load Selection. Tells us what document, and we get to choose the channel we want. Of course, right now all we have is 1. We go ahead and click OK, and there you have the selection. You can now grab your Move tool and drag this and drop it to another file. Of course, we don't have one open right now. I'll go ahead and hit Control-Z. Now, you can have multiple alpha channels saved within one file. I've never had to do it, but let me show you in case the occasion arises. I'm going to deselect. This time around, I'm going to get the Quick Selection tool, and I'm going to select the screen here. Of course, I will go to Select, Modify, Contract 1 pixel, Select, Modify, Feather, a half a pixel, And this time around, I'll show you the shortcut for saving that alpha channel. You can come over to the Channels panel, and down here at the bottom, we'll find the Save Selection icon. Now, if I simply click it, it creates an alpha channel and just calls it Alpha 1. I'm going to hit Control-Z. Now, if I hold the Alt key down and click it, it'll open up the New Channel dialog box, and I can come over here and rename it. Now here it's asking us, what do we want to keep, the masked area or the selected area? We'll say masked area right now. Go ahead and click OK. And you can see that's exactly what we want. We want the screen to be white, and we want everything else to be black, which means we're not keeping that part. I'll come down here, Alt-click on that again, and if I click the selected area, you can see we get the exact opposite. In other words, it's saying, what do we want to make alpha? Alpha means transparent, and when we chose the selected area, it made the screen the transparent part. Now I can delete alpha channels. I'll just grab this, drag it down to the trash can. Now let's say I want to save one more of them. I'll hit Control-D, and this time around, again with my quick selection tool, I'll grab the antenna. Select, modify, contract, 1 pixel, select, modify, feather, 0.5. I'll come down here, hold the Alt key, click, and call this the antenna. I think that's how you spell it. And click OK. So now we have 3 alpha channels here within this one image. So if we save it, go ahead and close it and save it. Later on we come and reopen it. This time the boss could say, hey, we're featuring our new cell phone screen on this latest advertisement. Well, you can come over and file Load Selection and choose the one you want. Now, a quicker way to do that is simply come over here to the Channels panel and Control-click on the one you want. Now, if you want to load 2 of them at once, maybe this one and the antenna, we know that we have to hold the Control key down and click on a channel to load that selection, but if we use our prior knowledge about adding and deleting from selections, we know that if we hold the Shift key down, we can add to a selection. So putting 2 and 2 together, if we hold the Control and the Shift key down and click on the antenna channel, we should be able to add the antenna to the current selection of the screen. And sure enough, when we Shift Control click on that antenna channel, it adds it to the selection. I'll hit Control-D. This time around, I'll Control-click on the phone, and maybe we want everything except for the screen. Well, I know I'm going to have to hold the Control key down to load that selection, but I know that if I hold the Alt key down as well, that should take away. And sure enough, we now have everything except for the screen. If I were to drag this, you can see that the screen's been cut out of there. Now I want to show you one thing that might throw you off. If you come over here and actually click one of the channels, you're going to load the black and white version of this. Don't panic. To get back to your full color version, just come up here and click the RGB. Of course, if you're working in CMYK, you'd come over here and click the CMYK. Another thing you might do is accidentally turn an eyeball on next to a channel. And what that does is that it highlights the transparent area or the black area of the channel with a red highlight. Simply turn the eyeball off to get rid of it. Another way to load the selection would be to actually select the channel that you wish to load here in the Channels panel and come down to this first icon, the Load Selection icon, and click it. Of course, you'll then have to come up to the RGB, select that to reload the color image. Now, there's no real reason to use that method. Just use the simple Control click on the channel. That's the way to go. If you can't remember those shortcuts, just remember that select menu. There it is. Load or save that selection. I'm now going to jump over to InDesign to show you how you can take advantage of these alpha channels in InDesign. I have some text here. I'm going to import that image. I'm going to come up to the desktop, into the Photoshop CS5, Level 1 class files, number 12, alpha channel. And I'm going to put that right here. Now this ends up above our text. I want to make it underneath the text. So I'm going to come over here to the Layers panel, grab this little red dot and drag it downwards. And now it's under the text. Now I'm going to apply text wrap to this image. I'm going to come over here, and I'll come over here and I'll put text wrap around the bounding box. And you can see the text wraps around the image. The images are always square. I could come over here, put a little padding around it as well if I wanted to. But if we have that alpha channel, I can now actually wrap the text around the shape of the alpha channel or around the cell phone instead. So instead of picking this first option here, I'll pick the third option, which is wrap around the shape. Now it looks like, hey, that's doing exactly what happened before. Steve, what are you telling us? Well, what I have to do is come down here to the contour options and choose alpha channel. And now you can see that the text wraps around the shape of the cell phone. Of course, I can put a little padding on that as well. Now this does not get rid of the white background. It gives us the illusion that there is no background on this image because it's white on a white sheet of paper. If that cell phone had been on a green background, we would still see the green square around the cell phone. The text would still wrap around the cell phone. Just to show you that, I'll come over here to the Layers panel, select the alpha channel, drag it back up to the top here, and put it above the text. And you can see the white of the image is still there. So that's an example of how we can use those alpha channels right here in InDesign. I'm going to go ahead and close InDesign, and I'm not going to save that document. And now we're back over here in Photoshop. So that's it. Very simple. Save that selection. You can use it in the future. And you can see that we can also use this in some of the other Adobe CS5 programs. Now in the next lesson, we'll take a look at creating compositions, which is the main reason we've been learning how to make all these selections to begin with. So we'll see you there.